Hey there, in this video I want to talk about guilt. It's an emotion that I often come across in sessions with my clients, and an emotion that I'm of course also known with myself. And especially the guilt that you feel when you are on a journey, for example, of healing, awakening, self-discovery, transformation. The guilt that you feel when you are changing, when you are growing and transforming, and when you transcend your old life and want to take new steps. But you feel held back in some way by guilt. You feel guilty towards the people you love, your family, your friends, society as a whole, people who have it worse than you, as if you are not allowed to live the life that you dream of and that you are creating on the go when you are on this healing journey. But why? Why do you feel guilty? Why do you feel guilt when you decide to change your life, to take new steps? Why do you feel guilty following your joy, your pleasure, your desires, your dreams? Why is this guilt there? What is it? How is it created? And what is it serving? I will tell you in this video. So when you as a little child grow up in a family system with parents, a mother and or a father that is very emotionally immature, that is struggling with mental health issues, struggling with addiction, struggling with financial problems, struggling with each other, struggling with their own traumas, their own losses, their own grief, struggling with surviving in this system, and they were never really resourced and resilient to work it out for themselves, they probably burdened you with that. Intentionally or not, subconsciously or not, like subconsciously or consciously, they burdened you with that. Especially as a little child, when you are very sensitive and do your best to attune to the emotional state of your parents, because that will keep you connected and attached to them. You are very sensitive to their state and you feel what they are going through. And especially when they are emotionally immature and haven't worked out their own traumas and haven't built their own resources and resilience and went to therapy, for example, to help themselves, often these parents are emotionally immature and often make you responsible in any kind of way of helping them grow and heal and transform. And while they are not aware of that often, this is what they do when they are emotionally immature and not able to deal with their own shit. So as a little child, what you have are your own emotional, physical, and relational needs that you want to be met by your parents, that you need your parents to meet. But they are not capable of meeting those needs when they are emotionally immature or are so much struggling with their own insecurities, problems, health, mental health disorders, etc., their own traumas. Then you are not getting your needs met. And this leaves some kind of disconnection with them. So you feel a gap inside of you. You miss them, and the things that you need from them, they're not meeting. So you try to get your needs met indirectly, covertly, through becoming their helper, to becoming their teacher, through becoming their therapist, through becoming the rebel, through becoming the one who works for them, carries their shit, their responsibilities, etc. So you feel responsible for them, or they make you feel responsible to raise and feed and emotionally nurture your younger siblings, for example. This is also a thing that can happen in traumatic, emotionally immature family systems. And so there is a dynamic that you need your parents, but they're not able to give you what you need. So you become what they need in the hope that in the end, they will become what you need. And this happens consciously or subconsciously, intentionally or not. Your parents aren't aware of that or not, or they are not aware of the effect that it has on you. And they parentify you. That's the term we use. They parentify you. They make you the parent. And they make you feel responsible for their state of being, for their health, or for your younger siblings, for example. So you get into a role in a family system where you feel overly responsible for the people around you and to make the people around you feel good, seen, heard, loved, etc. And if you grew up in such a role, you are also probably more of a people pleaser, more a helper, a giver, etc. And often what you also experience or start to tell yourself is that those people cannot live without you. You have to be there for them, otherwise the whole system will collapse. So you think you have to save them, help them, heal them, be responsible for them. And this is what you tell yourself. And this is the responsibilities you take on as a little child, as a parentified child. And often, because people are so used to that and your parents are emotionally immature, it's often even the case that if you do not show that helping behavior, that parentified behavior, that responsible behavior, you even get blamed or shamed for not doing that, right? So you feel guilty for not helping others and putting your attention out there, out into the world and giving, and not receiving what you need. So this can be a dynamic where you internalize this guilt and where you create a story around it, around the role that you have and around the things people expect of you, subconsciously or consciously, that it is not good or not allowed or not even wished for that you choose for yourself. So you create the story that if I choose for myself, if I just only focus on myself, if I do not take responsibility, etc., I should feel guilty. I'm really guilty of hurting others. I'm really guilty of not being the person that people need me to be. And this is actually what is behind the guilt of choosing for yourself, the guilt of walking your own path, the guilt of following your joy and your desire, the guilt of feeling good while others don't, the guilt of developing yourself in such a way that you outgrow your parents, the guilt of transcending your parents, the guilt of letting go of your siblings as if you are their mother or their father and you are abandoning them, the guilt of you choosing for yourself and hurting your mother or your father because it's not the choice that they would have made for you. The guilt of not being able to be the person that others need you to be. The guilt of not being perfect for others. The guilt of not carrying their baggage, their shit, their troubles, their suffering. The guilt of not being the savior, the helper, the healer, the giver, the pleaser, the guilt of not being responsible anymore for the emotional state of others, the guilt of hurting others, abandoning others if you choose for yourself. And this guilt can be created in family systems where there's a lot of enmeshment, codependency, emotional immaturity, trauma, abuse, addiction. This can be all kinds of things. Feel free to share your experience below this video and teach and educate other people who might struggle with understanding if this is the case for them. But yeah, this guilt is thus, as I say, already created when you are a little child in your family system and in the role that you had in the family system. It's all subconsciously, and you create all kinds of mechanisms, masks and identities to keep you in this role. And then you go on this healing journey and this self-discovery and awakening journey, and you want to transform yourself in your life, and you find yourself at a crossroads. Like, this is where I have to let go of that role of the pleaser, of the responsible one, of the savior, of the healer, of the helper, the role that I had in a family system, and now I'm going to let that role go because it's not serving me anymore, and because I feel that my authentic self wants to be expressed through me, which is a completely different role, or which first now finally wants to choose for herself or himself or themselves and choose a different life. Away from the responsibilities that were never mine, for example, just away from the family role. And you betray your family role in such a way. You transcend your parents. You maybe have it better, or you're more free, more rich, more pleased, more happy, whatever. And then the guilt comes. Then all the stories around the guilt come. You are a bad person. You are not allowed to do this. You should go back to where you belong. And many other things that maybe did not even originated, or how do you say that, many other things that weren't created in your family system individually, so just only in your past, but in the generations that came before you, so in your whole family lineage, and maybe even collective guilt, religious guilt, cultural guilt, political guilt, etc. Because as I say, often we're not only healing our individual lines, we are breaking cycles of trauma and suffering and oppression, right? But the guilt comes, the guilt is holding you back. And why? Because it wants to protect you. It is a protection mechanism. Our system is wired for survival, and everything that we do not know and that is new to us, and everything that might be a threat to our survival, and often new things and new situations are, evolutionary spoken, they activate our survival system, our protection mechanisms, our fear and anxiety, our fear of failure, fear of abandonment, rejection. And in the end, all these fears come down to a fear of death, right? Will I survive when I do that? Will I be all alone when I choose this? Or will I be okay? So you are on this crossroads wanting to take new steps, and then guilt comes in to protect you. And often what's behind this guilt is that when you take the steps to choose for yourself, you have to face the consequences of choosing for yourself. And this can mean emotional, physical abandonment and rejection from the people you care about. From your parents, for example, from your siblings, from your friends, from acquaintances, from your hometown, from your country, whatever, from the status quo, from what is normal. So it's the fear of the consequences of choosing for yourself, which is also making you feel guilty, or what is guilt protecting you from. So often guilt is there to point you towards the role that you had in the family system, in the town you grew up in, and that you are abandoning, asking you, will we be safe? Will we be okay? Shouldn't you do these things, etc.? And behind the guilt, there's this fear, right? The fear of abandonment, the fear of rejection. So often we think that we feel guilty, but actually it's a self-sabotage. It's a self-protection mechanism to not fear the consequences of you facing that guilt and choosing for yourself. And that is fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of failure, feeling ashamed if you fail, feeling all alone, not trusting that you can carry all of that on your own, etc. And facing the consequences of facing the guilt and choosing for yourself can be that you have to sit with the grief and the pain from the first moments that your mother and or your father emotionally or physically rejected or abandoned you. And this is often really intense, as I always say, because these were very overwhelming emotions in the past when you were a little child and no one was there to help you process those emotions. That grief, that fear of being rejected by your mother, for example, if you're not someone that she needs you to be. And in the past, you decided, I will be the person who everybody needs me to be so that I will receive love, recognition, validation, and stay connected. But now you're an adult and now you're at this crossroads and you want to change, you want to transform, and you want to let go of all of that. But you still feel that guilt because facing the consequences of choosing something else will lead to some form of disconnection. And disconnection and trauma on disconnection is the biggest trigger for our fears of abandonment, rejection. And we have to sit with the grief of the first time, the first initial moment that we were rejected or abandoned emotionally or physically by our mother and or our father. So that's an intense fear to process and to sit with. That's creating emotional awareness. That's working emotionally with those fears and that rejection and that abandonment and that grief. Really feel them, release them somatically, and then create slowly over time, while doing that, emotional tolerance around disconnection, being okay with being disconnected for a while. And that is what guilt is when it is created, how, why, and what it is protecting you from, and what it is telling you, what the message is that it wants to tell you. Are you sure you want to do this? Because maybe we have to face the consequences of disconnection, which we have already felt so guilty about in the past. And this is the reason why we became this and this person and created these mechanisms to stay connected to the people around us and to be the person our parents, for example, needed to be. Are you sure you want to break that bond? Are you ready for that? And if not, this is completely fine. But if you are ready, then you have to face the consequences and tolerate the disconnection and feel the grief that you suppressed in that initial moment of disconnection where you were rejected or abandoned, blamed, punished for choosing for yourself and not carrying the responsibilities for your parents, who were very emotionally immature and not aware that they put this on your shoulders. And this is why, if you are on this healing and transformational journey and you feel guilt is holding you back, why guilt is holding you back and why you are self-sabotaging. And if you're ready to work with that guilt, to sit with it, to process the grief and the trauma around disconnection and the role you had to take on in the family system, and if you're ready to let it all go, I do this in my one-on-one sessions, but I also have a web shop with all kinds of tools to help you with that. And I have my online platform, Beyond Psychology, where you can find all my tools, videos, exercises, everything to help you slowly over time, because it's never done in one exercise or one day. Slowly over time, create emotional tolerance, grieve and heal your trauma from the past, and understand what you need to transcend the guilt, to integrate it, and take the steps that are good for you. Thank you for being here, and good luck.